Hello, Raptors Nation. Sean Davis here for the Raptors Nation, your home for everything Raptors. The Raptors are in Cancun on vacation watching the other teams play playoff basketball. Right now, the Raptors, for the second time in the last three seasons, miss out on the NBA playoffs. Sean Davis here, joined as always by my friend Luca Rosano. Luca, how you doing, man? And have you gotten any vacation time since the Raptors just want to say, hey, here's some time off for you?
Yeah, I know it's crazy, right? We got playoff basketball as we speak. There's no Raptors. They're gonna have an extended off season. We got so much free time now, but ultimately, I mean, I wasn't surprised. It's crazy how the Raptors didn't even win that one playing game as we both predicted, and what a lot of people thought. It looked like they were about to win. They totally collapsed, but I said it in the tweet. If it was in the Wednesday, it would have been the Friday. The Raptors were not going to go into Miami and win that game. It would have been poetic because the Raptors would have then beaten DeMar and Kyle to get to the playoffs. But yeah, it just wasn't the Raptors season. This has been a season that has been pretty much written off in my mind since the start of the new year. I didn't think the Raptors were going to do much of anything. Obviously, we got the surprise of them buying at the deadline, but it was just one of those weird seasons where I just had this gut feeling that they were not going to do nothing. And that's exactly what happened. I think a lot of fans towards the end, Sean, were waiting for this thing to be over and done with. And I know it's bad to say that as a diehard fan, but sometimes you got to cut your losses. You know, you set back to reality and you call things for what it is. And this Raptors team simply just wasn't good enough. And now watching some of these playoff game ones, it really solidifies the fact that the Raptors were not a playoff team and they did not deserve to be a playoff team because, yeah, they did not play great basketball at all. And that's the reason why they're in Cancun.
Well, there's nothing wrong with vacationing in Cancun. If you're in Cancun for because your team wasn't good enough, that's a problem, but not just for a simple vacation. But on today's show, we have a few topics. We're going to talk about kind of the off-season plan and what you guys can expect from us. We're going to go over our season recap in awards, including most improved, MVP, things of that nature. And then we're going to talk about some Nick Nurse related stuff, content to round out the show. And screw it, maybe make a finals prediction or two. I haven't thought about that one. That's tough. I forget what my pickbacks in the preseason was. But Luca, let's start this off. How would you describe? You got 3 words to describe this Raptor season. What would you choose?
Okay, that's interesting. I would say, let me just do. Is this word even 2 words or not? Wow, I'm really on the spot right now. Yeah. Okay, letdown is 1 word. I was gonna make it into two. Yeah, total letdown! Exclamation mark. I don't know. Yeah. Or sorry. Yeah, I'll do this. A disappointing season. Yeah. What am I saying? That's fitting. A disappointing season. Yeah. I mean, that's what it was. Like huge expectations coming in. I thought this team was going to be a playoff team when we did this show back in August. They were building off some nice momentum from last season. Yes, they lost the Philadelphia 76ers, but they actually battled back. They made it a series. You had the expectation and the excitement surrounding Scotty Barnes. You had this team that was coming into its own, having a full season now with, some of those key guys all playing with each other. And, Fred VanVleet coming off the All-Star appearance. You were confident that Siakam was going to return to All-Star form, which technically he did. He made the All-Star team. And yeah, the Raptors just completely fell off. I mean, they proved that they overachieved last season, and this team had a lot of flaws. And this whole experiment of just building the roster the way that they did, of having so many of the same guys on this team that could do similar things, it ended up being very detrimental for this team. I thought, the biggest thing to me, Sean, that I see in the difference of play from some of these playoff teams and the Raptors is we are seeing some elite guard play. And the Raptors, I mean, they had nothing outside of, Fred VanVleet. And Gary Trent Jr. was just too inconsistent to put him in that category. But just having a lack of guards, having guys that didn't, who got off to slow starts, having guys like a Fred VanVleet who took a step back, especially in that first half of the season, it really hurt this team. Not having a bench, the Raptors were one of the worst benches, and then the 3-point shooting. How could I forget? I mean, the Raptors ended up being one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. And I mean, it was just one of those things that it was the beginning of the end once the whole Otto Porter Jr. saga went down, because that was their big free agent get, right? You bring in a 3-and-D guy, you're thinking, damn, Otto Porter Jr. just helped the Warriors win a championship from off the bench. He's going to be a key piece for this team. And he goes down, he gets injured, and then the bench falls apart. Hernan Gomez never pans out. The Raptors try to make a late save with Will Barton. That was a disaster. And then the Raptors just have these inconsistent moments where some of their starters look good in one game and then they look completely off in the next game. And it happened with every single player in that Raptors starting lineup. Gary Trent Jr. in and out of the lineup, a starter at times, then a bench player. And, in that last game, it was fitting that he stunk it up. I mean, that could be his last game with the Raptors. I'm sure we'll get into our offseason predictions either this show or later on. But yeah, just never really clicked. And it's like every time the Raptors, it felt like they were going to build momentum, they were never really able to string it together. And we're going to get into Nick Nurse a little bit later on in the show. I think a lot of it also had to do with the disconnect. Nick Nurse losing some of these guys, and you could just tell that the vibes were not there at all. Like Raptors basketball usually, brought good vibes, fun moments, guys laughing on the bench, these guys being huge friends off the court as well. It just felt like it was a very, very dire environment every single time. So yeah, the Raptors, I mean, the end of the season, 41-41, definition of mid, right? So that's exactly what the season was, a disappointing one.
I'm gonna go with hold on. Failed science experiment. You kind of touched on it. Like the Raptors' goal was, and how they've kind of constructed this roster is like a mad scientist, and Nick Nurse being that mad scientist, and Masai Ujiri even being that mad scientist, where the science experiment is, hey, look, let's get all these wings that can defend. Let's get all the wings, all the size, right? And let's build our roster around that, right? And it just never really worked. Like, and then you add on top of it, hey, let's get all the wings. Let's try to build around two timelines where you have Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, who you probably need to win now with, but let's build around Scotty Barnes. Let's build around an OG and an OB. Let's go make a trade for Jakob Poeltl at the trade deadline. Like all these different pieces on top of that, like you said, Nick Nurse potentially losing the locker room. It was just a massive failed science experiment that just blew up in everybody's face, made a couple of the star players look bad, and it made your head coach, who is heading into the season very well regarded as a top 5 head coach, it makes him look bad. It makes your executive, one of the top executives in all of basketball, look bad. So failed science experiment. And I tried to get a little bit more clever with some other wording, but like that's just the easiest way to kind of describe this Raptors team as a whole post championship, definitely post bubble, but post like championship for sure. Just a failed science experiment.
Yeah, I definitely like your wording there a lot better than mine. And I think, you hit it on the head, right? Failed science experiment in two regards. The whole trying to make it work with the same type of player. And then, that's a really good point you brought up about the two timelines. I've spoke at large about that. You can't have it both ways. You can't develop young talent and then expect to be competing for a championship at the same time. Look at the Thunder. I mean, they're not in playoffs. They got a lot. They got a taste of the play-in, but they're going to take some time before that team really hits its ceiling, which could be very, very soon. But yeah,
next
you can't
year.
play. Yeah, probably next year. You can't play both games. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? So it's either like if the Raptors are going to go all in and try to win a championship, then this is how I look at it. Then you would have traded Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant, right? If Kevin Durant's with the likes of Siakam, VanVleet, I'm not looking at the depth, but let's just say those are your core guys. Like that, you go out and get a bench. Like that's going to compete in the Eastern Conference. So because you said, no, we're not trading Scotty Barnes, which I still agree with is the right decision, then you got to go all in on Scotty Barnes. You got to go all in on trying to develop him. So the Raptors made their decision in August when they decided not to trade Barnes and they wanted to play the long game. But now you got to commit to Barnes, and it's going to make for an interesting offseason because I think you can't make this work with the whole VanVleet and Siakam, core. It's time that you realistically, Fred could walk for nothing, and that's another conversation. But for the whole the Siakam thing is what intrigues me the most, and we touched on this in a previous show. It's like don't get to the point in which you're in with VanVleet when it's 2024, when Siakam can walk as well, and don't tie yourself into these big contracts by paying a VanVleet and Siakam. Now's the time, a golden time.
Literally this summer. Yeah.
this summer where you offload, get as many assets and picks as you can, similar to what the Jazz did last summer. Now look how great the Jazz current situation is and their future
Yeah.
situation. You know, getting all those pieces for Gobert, getting all those pieces for Donovan Mitchell. So if I'm the Raptors, you do that, and then hopefully you could strike some sort of sign and deal with Fred. Then this franchise is cooking. But if they lock in Fred, then odds are they're going to lock in Siakam the following year, and Raptors fans are just going to scratch their head and say, "Wow, like this is literally Portland all over again. This is Washington all over again. Like this team would be stuck in the middle for many years, many more years to come."
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And let's play this same game with Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse. 3 words to describe a season. I'll go first.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse, 3 words. See, I said I would go first, and I didn't, and I'm not. All right, I got it. Nick Nurse, 3 words or less. One more shot. One more shot, because I think you bring Nick Nurse back, right?
Yeah.
But there are legitimate question marks, and even I brought this up on previous shows. Like, can Nick Nurse develop? Can Nick Nurse be the head coach and develop a Scotty Barnes? And I think Scotty, in moments, has looked really, really good. But like, I bring this point up because you go back to that title team. I hate this argument, but I'm going to use it right here. So call me hypocritical if you want to. But like, he did inherit that title team. Like, all those pieces, besides Kawhi, and maybe and Marcus All, but like a lot of those pieces on that championship team were already there, right? Like Siakam was already there. You could argue maybe Nick Nurse had a hand in developing Siakam, especially throughout that season. But you had a lot of that team there already, right? And then into the next year where they surpassed all expectations, you had the same team, the exact same team, but no Kawhi Leonard. And then like we've seen when it's kind of, when that championship team really broke apart, and like it was Siakam having to step up, Fred VanVleet, OG, those guys, and the rest of them was like no Serge Ibaka, Marcus Gasol, Kawhi, Norman Powell. Powell was there the disappointing year, but like you get my point. When he's had to like have those guys that weren't key pieces on the championship team, the results haven't been the best. Like I said, missed the playoffs 2 out of 3 seasons. I still think he's a great head coach. But if you were to fire Nick Nurse, or I'm going to say fire, I think it'll be one of those wordings where you have like the Woj bomb and the tweet goes, Toronto Raptors and head coach Nick Nurse have mutually agreed to part ways. It'll be one of those tweets where so that the wording doesn't look as harsh. But look, I think Nick is still a great head coach. I think Nick is a great head coach for a situation where you have A, B, C, D, E set in stone. I don't have to do anything in terms of development, like as much development wise, building up a player. I have my superstars intact. I have like legit bona fide superstars intact. And Luca, one last point. You brought this up. We talked about the level of play here in the postseason. I'll take it one step further. It's the shot making as well, not just the guard play, but the like insane level of shot making in these playoffs. So you see it every year. But like my number one criticism of the Raptors offense this year is that everything looks tough because everything in the offense literally just revolves around you have to hit tough shots. And the Raptors don't have that. They don't have tough shot makers. Fred VanVleet is arguably your best tough shot maker, and the dude shoots like 38% from the field. Like, that's not good.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly said. I mean, yeah, like the offenses we've seen have been elite, right? Just watch the Warriors and Kings series, and you'll just see how easy these teams make it look. Whereas the Raptors, it seemed like it was a chore every time this team was coming down on offense. For my 3 words, I guess I'll say it's interesting. I mean, I'll go with I'm not sure, and that just stems from I'm not sure what direction the Raptors go here with Nick Nurse. I see a world where he's back, and I also see a world where he's not back. And I think it might come from like which direction the Raptors going, because if the Raptors try to make this work again, and I've been seeing some names come up. I think Bleacher Report did an article about like what they think the Raptors are going to do, and I think like their top choice was like try to trade for Jaylen Brown. And like let's just say the Raptors somehow try to trade for a big name player. I could see Nick Nurse be a part of that. But then also, if the Raptors somehow go full rebuild, is Nick Nurse really the guy who's going to usher in that rebuild, I'm not sure. And I don't think he would necessarily be that coach because Nick Nurse, his proven track record suggests that this is a guy who can, go into a environment and win right away. But, the other team that's been rumored to get Nick Nurse is another team that is similar to kind of where the Raptors are. I mean, they're
It's the
far less.
Rockets.
Yeah, they're far less on the totem pole, but it's the Rockets. So, yeah, I really don't know how this is going to play out, Sean. I mean, going based on his press conference, it does suggest that he will be back because he did say that he loves it here. But at the end of the day, it's a business. And one of the biggest flacks he got, apparently, from his teammates as well, or sorry, his players as well, was that they didn't like the whole they didn't like what Nick Nurse said beforehand, how you were literally still in season. You had to still clinch a playing spot, make the playoffs. And he was already talking about how he was thinking ahead and how he's going to take time this offseason to reevaluate things. Like that wasn't a good look on Nick Nurse's part. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to put money on it, I'll say he is back and he does honor that last season. But I can see a world where, yeah, Masai Ujiri, by the way, they're expected to make some significant changes, decides to clean slate this thing. So it's going to be interesting times for Raptors fans for sure. But the last thing I want to see is, this team run it back. And I was actually going to use the 3 words, the last dance, but then I'm like, nah, like I don't want to see this Raptors team back.
All right, let's get into some awards. Let's line up here. Most improved player of the year for the Raptors. Luca, who you got?
This is a very, very interesting one. Wow, most improved. Okay, I'm not gonna. It's not Gary Trent Jr. He showed flashes of brilliance, but just way too inconsistent. Van Vliet, obviously not. Nobody on the bench comes to mind. Like their bench was a disaster. All right, it's between 2 guys. I'm gonna go with. I'm not gonna say Scotty because he played better last season, I would say overall, and like you did expect him to take a bigger leap this season, which wasn't quite there yet. So I'm actually gonna go with OG. I'm gonna go with OG, and the reason being is, when he was healthy, OG Anunoby showed us what he can be on both sides. He ended up being the steals leader, and he really elevated his defense, and that's saying something because he's already an outstanding defensive player, but you could have, made an argument at one point in the season, defensive player of the year conversation. I know that just went to JJJ. But OG Anunoby, I mean, he had his best year defensively. And this was a guy that he did show signs where he could step up and have big games. That Lakers game against your Lakers comes to mind when him and Scotty Barnes, possibly showing us what's to come in the Raptors' future, carried the load, and they just didn't have any other help. Like OG is capable of hitting shots, of getting to the rim, of getting his offense going, and it comes down to him about staying healthy and if he's able to put it together. And I know he's going to turn 26 soon. He'll be 26 once next season starts, but I haven't given up on him up until this point. I'm not going to give up on him now. If OG Anunoby has a chance to have more of an offensive role come next season, which could happen if the Raptors offload some of their big name guys, I really think we can see OG explode on that side. And then all of a sudden you got a great two-way player here in OG Anunoby really showing us what he can do. And that's my biggest argument to why I don't think the Raptors should trade him, because yeah, you can get 3 first-round picks, which the Raptors reportedly rejected, and maybe a team would get desperate and throw in a player, which is what the Raptors ultimately want.
Yeah.
But it's like a player like OG Anunoby doesn't grow on trees. You don't get a guy like that every so often. So if you have him, you've spent all this time investing in him, might as well just continue to keep him. So I'm going to go with OG Anunoby. I really liked what he did when he was healthy out there on the court. And I'm still very high on him.
Yeah, this question was pretty easy for me. It was OG. I was kind of a critic. I was kind of not critic. I was criticizing him for some of the comments he made about like how he wanted to be more involved in the offense, and then like right around the trade deadline or whatever, he just like craps the bed and doesn't perform. Like, you want this, you got to perform. And then post All-Star break, he was averaging, I think I have the stats right in front of me, closer to 17 points per game post All-Star break, 16.5. So technically the scoring average just dropped, but he was just so much more efficient. 51.9% from the floor, 42% from three. That's the big one with OG. Can he consistently be a knockdown three-point shooter? 42% from three post All-Star break on higher volume, including like games like you mentioned, big time performances against teams such as the Lakers, the Washington Wizards. He had a monster game, 2 monster games against the Wizards, excuse me. He had a great game again, or a good game at least, against the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, the performances just kind of stacked up on each other with OG Anunoby. So for me, this was OG. You got like a glimpse, or like enough for sure. So where I'm in agreement with you, Luca, where you got it, like you said, you spent so much time in developing a guy like OG. You want to like just stick around long enough to reap the benefits of your rewards. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to trade him right before he's about to enter his prime and
Exactly.
he just blows up. And like, who knows if OG Anunoby, like let's say, Luke, let's say the Raptors tear this down, right? By tear this down, I mean like everybody but Scotty, OG, and Jakob Poeltl are safe. Only reason why Jakob Poeltl is safe because you spent at the deadline to get him, so he has to be safe. So Luca's still pissed. My bad. So you spent right OG Anunoby next year, and that's like the core, not the core, but like you trade away the rest. Like you let Fred and Gary potentially walk. You trade Pascal, right? There is a real world where like OG averages 20 to 25, almost has like a Mikal Bridges level blow up.
Yeah,
Not
I was
like,
just about to say. Yeah.
yeah, like Mikal's been like ridiculous, but like something along those lines where it's like consistent 20 to like 23 points a game per night. You don't want to give up on that before he blows up. So, and it's in a contract year, I think. So you have more incentive to ball out, and then you get to keep him and keep the home cooking going because you would have given him what he's wanted. He's wanted a bigger offensive role. Here you go average 23 points. We'll pay you. Stick around, and you perfect. Build around Scotty and build around OG.
Yeah, and funny enough, he's eligible for a contract extension in the fall. And yeah, I really like how you brought up Bridges because that's exactly what I was thinking of. I mean, Mikal Bridges is better. We can agree on that. But both of these guys have kind of been synonymous with one another. Of like Bridges started off being a defensive guy, and then it was about like, could he get it cooking on offense? And he was obviously overshadowed with a lot of talent in Phoenix. And now we're seeing what he can do as this Nets team is now his team. So could OG have a similar leap offensively as that if all of a sudden this offense runs through him and you don't have Fred and Siakam anymore taking the majority of the shots. So I think the Raptors should take that route, but I mean you never know what this team is thinking, right?
All right. Now for the tougher one. I think I might surprise you. MVP.
Yeah.
I'm taking it as the literal like word, the definite most valuable player, which oftentimes turns into who had the best stats award. No, MVP, the most valuable player. Luca, who you got?
Okay, so this is gonna end up being who had the most stats award, but yeah, I like for me, like I know I criticize him a lot, and I don't think he's a number one guy at all. I think you know where I'm going with this. I'm gonna give the MVP to Pascal Siakam because for the regular season, you look at his numbers, he did have his best season as a Raptor, 24 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 5 assists. I think he's the first Raptor ever, if I'm not mistaken, to get close to 25 points per game and 5 and 5, like a 25 5 and 5 season. I know technically it's 24.2, but yeah, I don't think any Raptors ever put up those numbers. So Siakam, yes, he froze in crunch time. Yes, he could have been more aggressive at certain points, especially
you're making all the arguments against yourself right now.
in the playing game when the Raptors could have used him to be aggressive, and he did miss 2 big free throws, but the Raptors collectively got beaten by DeAndre DeRozan. Siakam's numbers were on full display. And the only reason why I'm giving him this MVP award, Sean, because all these Raptors were disappointing. Even the guy you're going to tell me. But the only reason why I'm giving him this award is because you remove Pascal Siakam from this Raptors team, and like they don't come close to 41 wins. And you're right, maybe I am making arguments against myself because then that would have been easier for this team to tank. But Siakam did impact this team winning they're 41. And if Siakam wasn't out there playing, the Raptors would have been a lot worse. And I'm coming from the perspective of, yeah, the Raptors, obviously they were in it to win it. And yeah, Siakam, a lot of people are making the case for him being an all NBA. He's not going to get that, but that's how well he was playing. I would say he was a lot better in the first half of the season. And then he ultimately got the All-Star nod. So that's another case to why he was the Raptors MVP. And then in the second half, he kind of slowed down a lot. So yeah, I'm making my argument from if the Raptors don't have Siakam, they win a lot less games. And, statistically, he did have the best season of not only the Raptors players, but of his career as a Raptor.
All right. It's hard to disagree with you. I'm going to try, though. And I'm more so doing this for like fun banter because I'm curious what your response is going to be. But I'm going to go with a player who I feel like when he was at his best, and it was a pretty sustained period when he was at his best, the Raptors, it felt like, or like even if the Raptors weren't playing at their best, it felt like the Raptors had a lot more of a chance because this player was playing at his best. It's not Fred VanVleet. I would be an idiot. I would be so wrong. It's not Fred. It's not Gary. It's definitely not Gary. It's not OG. I gave him my most improved. I'm going to go Scotty. I'm going to go Scotty Barnes. I think when Scotty Barnes was rolling, so you look at like January, February, March, when Scotty Barnes was playing really, really well, man, like I remember come out, there was excitement. It was like there's something good to talk about, right? And maybe I'm just making this like the feel good award or whatever. Because no, seriously, like Scotty and OG, the two what should be the future heads of your organization, and also kind of at the same time starting to blossom and show up. Like I remember, like you said, dude, like just the month of January for Scotty, where he had a stretch where it was 21, 27, 26, 14, 13, and 5, 29, like 19, 24. Like, dude, that month of January, Scotty was amazing. He shot 50, just under 51% from the field, 18 points, 7 and 6, right? You go to like you look at the month of March, right? That we were just talking about. Obviously, he has that insane game against the Lakers, 32 points, 9 and 7, right? 22, 7 and 12 against Miami in a win, 29, 9 and 8 in a game where he was the best player on the floor in a game where the potential MVP also played in it. So, in Joel Embiid, I don't care who wins MVP, by the way, for the league. Like, if it's one of those three, I don't care. Embiid is my personal pick for MVP, though. So, Scotty Barnes is my pick. Obviously, if I wanted to go with the probably more correct answer, I'd go Pascal Siakam for the reasons that you laid out. But just for some fun banter and to give him a shout out, Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, I could see why you would go with Barnes because at a time during the season, a lot of Raptors fans were just focused on Scotty Barnes and they just cared about the numbers that he put up because fans knew it was a wash season at that point. So it just became, okay, let's watch Scotty Barnes play basketball and just marvel at the good things that he can do and just completely ignore the bad things that he does during the game, which obviously he still has to get better at. And, it's the little things like, the turnover, just his overall maturity and stuff like that. But no, I agree. I mean, like when Scotty Barnes was at his peak this season, it's like, okay, like the Raptors still have somebody special. Like that was just ludicrous talk at the beginning of the season when he was struggling and fans were saying, oh, Scotty ends up being a bust. Like the rookie of the year was just a one and done thing. And like people were actually comparing him to, I'm forgetting his name, Michael Carter Williams. Like it was insane.
Wait,
where like
really?
Yeah, where he has like like that.
Year.
Yeah, he won Rookie of the Year that year, right? Michael Carter Williams.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he just fell off after. So people were like using that in the conversation with Barnes after how bad he started the season. So like it was really bad. But then I think Scotty started turning around at the midway point, and then he had some standout games. And like I'm still fairly high on Scotty, which is why I'm saying the Raptors need to commit to him and build around him. Now, is he the guy that's going to lead you to a championship? I think it's still early to say, but I would probably lean towards no. But is he one of the guys who could, like, is he one of the core pieces that could be a championship team? Absolutely, right? Like if you draft a guard or develop a guard and he ends up being a stud, him with Scotty would be unbelievable. And like my dream of Scoot Henderson with Scotty dies obviously because the Raptors, I mean, unless a miracle happens, are not going to get a top 3 pick. But you have Scotty as one of your core guys and you get some other good young pieces, that could be a promising young core that could usher in some success in the postseason. So there's still a long way to go with his game, but Scottie Barnes has shown a lot of promise. But I'm curious to hear your take on that. Do you think Scottie has that potential to be a superstar type guy to lead your team, or would you rather, go the other way and say he'll be one of the guys and not the guy? It's so tough to tell now because I know like it's what, year two, but
Yeah, and I feel like you didn't see enough to like fully get that answer. Like, right, like you had to ask me like on the spot right now, I'd say probably he's one of the guys. One of the guys. Like right now, he's one of the guys on a championship team
one
with
of
the
these guys.
potential of
Yes, yes,
being the guy.
yeah,
Um,
I agree with that.
yeah, I just don't think we saw it. I think you like the stuff is there, if that makes sense. Like the stuff is there to where you could be
The
like,
stuff is there.
okay, this guy could be our guy that's like consistent 25, like 6-5 or whatever, right? Or 25, like 7-7 or whatever. A night lead us be our best player and we're a contending team. But like there's also where I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll get like 28-5 or whatever. Like good all-star caliber stuff. Not the guy. Good second plus. I think like I think actually most likely outcome is that he's like just a second option on it. And that's fine. Like he's a second option on a really good
Oh
team.
yeah, I mean if that's a ceiling, that's really good. Yeah, second
That's still
option,
really good. Yeah.
like I'll take that in a heartbeat. I guess expectations ruin a lot, right? Because like it's funny coming out of his rookie year. I know the talk amongst like Raptors fans and like, dude, like I was even drinking the Kool-Aid at one point of like, can Scottie Barnes take that leap? And I'm talking leap like make the All-Star team
Yeah.
in his second season, which it didn't sound ludicrous at that time, just because of how good he was. He won Rookie of the Year. He had that playoff experience. You're like, hey, Scottie's ready to take off. And maybe if he had more of an offensive role and you didn't have Siakam and Van Vliet there, maybe Scottie would have taken off and he would have met those expectations. But I would say from an overall perspective, he probably didn't meet the expectations that most Raptors fans had of him coming into the season. But then to be fair, those were huge expectations, and you have to be realistic for a guy who's entering a second season. So I would say this in closing. I'm content with how Scottie Barnes' first 2 years have gone as a pro, and I'm content with how year two went, considering how bad he started the season. And year three, I think, is going to be a very big year for Barnes, and a very telling year of, like what kind of player can he actually become, right? And like at year three, you start to get a really good idea of that.
And I think we just kind of made another argument for why you probably have to blow this up. And blow like I said earlier, blow it up in terms of Scotty, OG, and Jakob. You guys are safe. The rest of you guys love you. We'll honor you and thank you for helping us win a title. But bye. Except Gary, he didn't help obviously. But like you said, like you're at the point now where you just kind of gotta see. You gotta
You gotta
see like
see.
is OG and Scotty that guy? And then honestly, if it takes a year where like you're not good next year, but like you got your answer, cool. Be bad next year and go get a top 10 draft pick. Go get a top 5 draft pick. Be
Top
bad.
five.
Go be bad. Find out your answer. And if you're really, really good, great. If Scotty and OG play so well that you're like a top 5 seed, perfect, right? But I don't know. I just don't think there's like a world where like it goes wrong. I think there is only like a good option out of trading Pascal and like letting
Yeah,
Fred and letting Gary potentially walk. Gary is still like a maybe I bring back, but Fred and Pascal you have to, right? Like for the
yeah,
reasons that we kind of said, you got to find out is Pascal not geez, is Scotty and OG our guy. And then your top 12 pick this year. Like, can that top 12 pick
yeah,
contribute? Like, legit contribute and not have to fight for minutes with Pascal and Fred potentially? Like, can these young guys do it? Or do we need to, like, go get another piece? Or do we need to look at if, let's say, Scotty drops the ball? Do we look at trading a Scotty? I don't know, but you got to find out sooner rather than later because you don't want it to be Scotty's last year on contract, you still don't know yet. Or
yeah.
OG is like you're about to re-sign and give OG an extension, and you have no clue if he can be a big piece for you. So that I'm going to end it right there from my side of things. You have to find out.
Yeah, no, because you can't keep letting this thing play out. And yeah, I agree. I mean, you let these guys have a full season, and then if you have more doubts than optimism at the end of that season, then you're going to be bad, and you're going to be in a position to get a high draft pick and try to get the guy in via top 5 pick. And like it's kind of like the OKC model, right? Like they have so many picks where it's like you can't mess this up. It's like if one guy doesn't pan out, you have next year's draft. And like obviously for them, they've gotten lucky where like they got a superstar type player in Shea. Giddy's coming along nicely. We still don't know what Chet's what's gonna happen with Chet. But even if Chet ends up being a bust, they have a billion picks to fall back on, like where they can get another good player if OKC suddenly is bad with Shea or whatever, or they could use that as trade bait. But yeah, like we won't get into that now. But yeah, no, I agree. Like you can't keep guessing about Barnes. The only way you're gonna know, give him the keys to the car, see what he can do. And if you aren't satisfied, then yeah, you gotta pray you get a top 5 pick, because if you get a 7th pick, it's going to the Spurs, and we're gonna bash the Raptors even more.
All right, really quick to wrap up the show. General NBA question: what's your NBA Finals pick? Make it right now.
All right, so I'm not gonna back away from the Warriors. I got the Warriors coming out of the West. I think that's a team that, like, until they prove to me that they lose with a healthy Steph, Clay, Draymond, they've never lost a playoff series where all those guys have started every game in a playoff series. So I'm backing them in the West. I think they get back there. And then in the East, it's easy for me, Sean. I'm going with the Boston Celtics, and that's my NBA champion. I think from top to bottom, the Boston Celtics are the best team. I know it's a shocker because I'm a Raptors fan, and like there's a whole feud there, but the Boston Celtics to me are the best team, and they're clearly the best team in the East. The Bucks now have a big scare with Giannis, although I think he's going to be okay, and the Bucks are still going to prevail in that series. I don't see the Sixers stopping the Celtics. I mean, the Sixers are the Celtics have their number, and then I have the Celtics beating the Bucks in that 7-game series. And then if there is a rematch, I do like the Celtics to kind of take what they learned last year as a group, redeem themselves and beat the Dubs. So I got Celtics over Dubs in 7 games.
Really quick, I will add on to that final point. Like, if it is a rematch, I as much as it pains me to say, I think Boston wins a rematch. I do agree with that. My preseason pick was Warriors Bucks. I'm gonna alter that slightly. So now my pick would probably be with the benefit of like Giannis being healthy. I got Denver, Milwaukee as of right now.
Denver? Okay, Denver. Don't lie. We know damn well you got the Lakers. You're allowed to show your bias here. I mean, if the Raptors were in the Lakers position, I'd probably be biased too and be like, yeah, the Raptors are gonna make it. But
okay, so like, look, with the Bucks take, the Bucks are kind of how I think you feel about Boston, where like I think Milwaukee, they got the best defense, they got the best player. And I just don't think there's a team that's beating. And even like if I were biased and I said Lakers Bucks, I don't think the Lakers beat Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is that good. I think they're the best team in the NBA. And personally, I just have too many questions about Boston. Like if it's I think Boston Milwaukee goes 7. I'd probably go as far as to say that the NBA champ is probably one of those two teams. Like maybe like if somehow Phoenix like completely figures it out and they learn how to play defense, or like the Lakers really, really figure it out. LeBron, AD are rolling, the role players play well. Outside of that, I don't think there's any team. I think that's like your best shot at somebody knocking off Boston or Milwaukee. Even like Golden State. If Golden State makes it out, I don't think they beat Boston. I don't think they beat Milwaukee. Like, so I think it's one of our 2 picks from the East. But if I'm not being biased, give me Denver, Milwaukee. All biased included, Milwaukee Lakers.
I like how you're giving Denver some credit here because everybody is sleeping on the Nuggets, it seems. Or let me rephrase it. Nobody's picking the Nuggets to make it to the finals or to even win the championship. But yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be in the East. The champion's coming from the Eastern Conference. And I mean, if somehow Philly gets by Boston. I mean, every other league has had a Philadelphia team represented in the final. You don't think that
won't be the NBA? Won't be the NBA.
Yeah, Philly's way too inconsistent. I mean, they almost lost game 2 against the Nets, but they did prevail. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
I think teams are going to take what Brooklyn's done against like Embiid and Harden, and like a team like a Milwaukee or like a Boston, for example, who's just simply more talented but still really really good defensively. Yeah, no, no. Even if they somehow beat Boston, which by the way would take them 7 games, they're not beating Milwaukee. I will die on that cliff. Watch Philly like beats both of them in like 6, and I look like the biggest idiot.
So you have it just amazes me because like you're not the only one who's like so quick to pick the Bucks. So here's the thing, it's twofold here. Like number one, I legitimately think it's gonna be a dogfight against the Heat now. Depending on what Giannis' status is. Like Miami's different. Jimmy Butler's different. So like I'm not saying the Heat are gonna win that series, but I think it's going 6 for sure now. It could probably go 7. And then let's just say they meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like everybody seems to forget like the Celtics B team almost beat the Bucks and then they completely dog walked the Bucks last time they met by 41. Yes, the Bucks were on the second night of back to back, but like none of that concerns you.
No. And then also with like the Heat thing, sure, I had the Heat series going to 5.
Well, I had
And
it
now
being deep before like the whole thing.
oh really? Okay. I had it going 5. And then now the Giannis injury happens. So I don't even count that as like their win. So yeah, I agree. It probably goes 6, right? I think Miami steals 1 at home, right? It's not steal 1, they're at home. So I mean, I think Miami gets 1 at home, but like they're beating the hell respectfully out of whoever wins that Knicks Cavs series. Like they're
Yeah.
beating them.
Yeah.
So you should have some more time. Well, whereas Boston Philly is going to be a battle going at least 6 games. So I don't know. I think, and I'm not even trying to like disrespect Boston. I think that goes 7 for sure. I think that goes 7. I think that is going to be potentially the best playoff series you could actually get, because those are the 2 best teams in the NBA. I think no
Yeah.
matter how
Yeah,
you
they are.
cut it, the Celtics and the Bucks have been the 2 best teams pretty much the entire outside of like the first 50 games of Denver. There hasn't been a Western Conference team to
No.
match what Milwaukee or Boston's done this year.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah. That right there could determine who's the champ with the Celtics and the Bucks.
Yeah. And definitely the Raptors did not meet any of the high level of play. And that's how we're going to end the show. I just had to throw that cheap jab because we have to end with something Raptors related and not us uh, halfway debating for 5 minutes about Bucks Celtics playoffs matchups. But Raptors Nation, comment down below. What should the Raptors mindset be heading into what should be a very busy offseason? Stay in the know here at Raptors Station. Oh, shoot. I did not like bring up the offseason plan whatsoever. Really quick. I'll be quick. So, Raptors Nation, for the offseason, we'll have, so we'll start doing some like player review series, maybe some short, maybe 10 minutes or whatever, breaking down the player season. Should the Raptors bring them back or what their long term future is in the Raptors jersey? You'll have some NBA content from NBA draft content from me, some free agency stuff, obviously. And obviously, you'll still have probably for sure 1 pod a week from us.
Yeah.
Breaking down all things Raptors. Luca, anything I forget there?
No, I think you hit everything on the head. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of draft coverage leading up to the Raptors' eventual pick. They are going to be picking 13th. That has been solidified after, of course, the Bulls and the Thunder both lost. And yeah,
Unless a miracle happens.
Oh yeah, there is a way, right? Yeah, it's like a very
Like a
slim chance.
point something. It's very, very slim.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of draft coverage. We're gonna give our official predictions of how we see this offseason playing out, and then obviously like anything breaking news that happens, whether it's with Nick Nurse, Masai Ujiri, or any of the players, we're definitely gonna have our reaction to that. And that sounds about right. Yeah, expect at least a pod a week from us with some videos mixed in moving forward.
All right, guys. Till next time, stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.